Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Honey Withrow is underway. The Monday edition has arrived. Glad you're with us. Outkick.com/watch is where you can find us. Chad Withrow is back. We are ready to go. Chad, good afternoon.
Eventful weekend, Hutton.
Good to have you back.
Very eventful weekend. Good to be back. Off for Friday. I know you held the fort down admirably, as you always do. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
But I'm excited, ready to roll today.
Also back, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. They are back in the Super Bowl.
It's almost like they never even left.
Yeah, they did. They said, we're not leaving. They are back in Super Bowl, at this time 58, headed to Las Vegas to meet the San Francisco 49ers. One underdog, one favorite, winning on championship weekend. And Patrick Mahomes does it yet again. Odds stacked against him. That doesn't happen very often. He's the underdog again going into the Super Bowl. And yet they show up, they arrive, and they win. The Chiefs' defense did an amazing job against a Baltimore offense that was totally shut down. But when the throws had to be made, Chad, Mahomes connected with Kelce and many others. Every third and long seemed perfect for Mahomes to find the open pocket and the open window to deliver a strike. Calm, cool, collected, and Mahomes does it again.
He's John Wick. You can't kill him. That's the best way to describe Patrick Mahomes. This offense looked dead, too. They looked dead early this season. They looked dead midway through this season. That team looked dead against the Raiders on Christmas Day. So much so that our fearless leader, Clay Travis, declared the Chiefs dead at that moment, and Travis Kelce done in that moment on Christmas. And I can't blame him for thinking that way, the way that Chiefs team looked on Christmas Day. And look at them now. When the going gets tough, they know exactly where to go. It is Patrick Mahomes turning to Travis Kelce and saying, let's go win this damn thing. And that's exactly what they did yesterday. It was impressive. It was a two-man show. When they needed a big play, he knew where to go. They were very efficient offensively, not explosive. Only 17 points, but they're not turning the ball over. They're not having the huge penalties. And unlike the Baltimore Ravens, they showed the poise of a champion, the poise necessary to win an AFC Championship game and win at this level when you get to this round of the playoffs. And Hutton, the Baltimore Ravens looked like a team that wasn't ready. Looked like a team that has not been there and was not ready for that spotlight. They didn't have poise. They were undisciplined. I was troubled by the way the Ravens looked in that game.
Well, and the Ravens defense also arrived. I mean, they held Kansas City without a point in that second half, still lost the game. And it wasn't just the players that didn't show up yesterday for Baltimore, the coaches as well. But it starts with the quarterback and Lamar Jackson. Chad, Lamar Jackson had this window of opportunity, massive window that was open for him. It's going to be the two-time MVP when it's all said and done and announced at the NFL Honors. And he's had a fantastic year. A lot of pressure that he put on himself, saying that he wanted the fully guaranteed contract. He's represented himself. Didn't happen. Ends up getting about $100 million less in fully guaranteed money than Deshaun Watson, the contract he signed. It's still massive money compared to what others have had in the past, but not what some has had in the past in Deshaun Watson. Shows up, wanted to prove that he could stay healthy, did that. Wanted to prove he can win and win at a high level, did that, except when it mattered. And yesterday is what we will remember yet again for Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, because the best quarterbacks are judged on what they do in the postseason. And Jackson has not delivered during this opportunity for him. He's a great player who has been off the mark when it matters the most in these moments. And in those moments where he has to match the absolute best, which comes in January in order to get to February. Then there's Mahomes and Kelce. And they stand and deliver every single time on this stage, in this moment. Chemistry. There is consistency. There is confidence, clutch. They've got that. And that is the pursuit of Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. That's the pursuit of every quarterback in the NFL not named Patrick Mahomes. Because Patrick Mahomes has he's been able to climb to this platform that only he stands on. And Jackson couldn't reach it yesterday. He hasn't been able to reach. He's now 2-4 in the postseason. He has 11 turnovers in his postseason games. He had more yesterday where he's He had the strip fumble from behind, first time he's fumbled since week 9. And he also had the interception that he threw into triple coverage in the end zone. He also made some hero throws. He made a hero catch as well, where he threw a pass to himself that was batted in the air. He had those moments, but he didn't have the moments. And that's the difference between the two quarterbacks, where Mahomes is going to be now compared to Brady, and Lamar Jackson's compared to everyone else who's trying to be in the same sentence as Mahomes. He's not. And Mahomes also had help, not just from the defense. The defense was spectacular. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, what a catch when it mattered the most. That throw wasn't to Travis Kelce. That throw was to end the game. And
it was a risky play call, too.
Getting the Pacheco, finding some key moments with him, but also just spreading the football out and not having those instances where they drop the passes instead of making the first down. He found the pockets. And when it truly matters, Mahomes is money. And you can't bet on anyone else that he's facing. And yet again, Vegas is telling us to. San Francisco's favorite opening by 2.5.
Which surprises me. And I think we get too carried away with Lamar Jackson on both sides of this argument. I think it's too easy to blame everything on Lamar Jackson and say, see, told you this guy's not a real NFL quarterback. Told you this guy can't win when it matters most. And then on the other side, oh, it's everybody else's fault. Lamar is without blame. He's done nothing wrong here. Here's the bottom line with Lamar Jackson. He's a top 5 NFL quarterback. I'm getting this BS from people telling me on social media, he's not a franchise quarterback. Give me a break.
Yeah, he's there.
There are 27 NFL teams, likely, 28 maybe, that would love to have Lamar Jackson as their franchise quarterback. Not a franchise quarterback. Are you kidding me? He's a 2-time MVP. He's about to be. Name quarterbacks that are 1-time MVPs and tell me that they're not a franchise quarterback. That's ridiculous to say he's not a franchise quarterback. He is. He's going to have to win one of these games, and he's going to need to outduel one of these quarterbacks at some point. And until he gets to that point, no, he's not. He's not Patrick Mahomes, obviously. No one is right now. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not a number of guys I would lay out there and say, I've seen them do it in the playoffs. I've seen them come up clutch when it mattered most. That's not Lamar Jackson. I would also have liked to have seen that game had Zay Flowers not fumbled into the end zone and had they scored on that play when he did. And to see what the end of that game looked like with Lamar Jackson being given more of a chance. They still had the opportunity late, and a very ill-advised throw in a triple coverage into the end zone for an interception. And that's the type of stuff we got to stop seeing from Lamar Jackson before we put him, not just he is an elite NFL starting quarterback, but we get to that platinum level, the upper echelon of great quarterback that can lead your team all the way. Because this year, he had the best team in the NFL. He had the best supporting cast and the best team in the NFL. And when it mattered most, and this is not just Lamar Jackson, his team was overly emotional. That's the best way I can describe that. Defense played well in the second half. Defense didn't do themselves any favors with a couple of personal foul penalties. And I'm watching Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. I'm waiting on either one of them to get ejected at any point because Travis Kelce was in their head. They're fighting every play. They're trying to drive Travis Kelce into the ground on every play. And I'm looking at it and saying, to the victor is the one that won the mind game. And whatever Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes were up to before the game, kicking Justin Tucker's tee away, throwing his helmet out of the end zone, that seemingly affected the Ravens more than the Chiefs mentally. And I'm very disappointed in the Ravens because they lost the mental war in this game. They were the better team all year. They were. Offense, defense, better team. And the Chiefs were more mentally tough than they were, and they owned them mentally in this game, and that's a big reason they won.
Well, we've seen them lose the mental warfare game before, with the teams trying to break it down on their logo in pregame,
yep,
as the best team. And then they somehow get into this mind trick where they play up to that emotion. 5 personal fouls in this game, 3 turnovers for Baltimore. Here's another personal foul, though. Todd Monken, what the hell are you doing? This is the top-ranked rushing offense in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens, against the 28th ranked rush defense. in the NFL in Kansas City, was just gashed for 182 yards by Buffalo the week prior. They gave the football to running backs 6 times in this game. 6 times in the game. They had 3 early down runs in the entire game that gained 17 total yards. What are you doing being so predictable? They had Lamar Jackson throw the football 41 times, either on plays he was sacked or plays where he was attempting to, throw and turned it over. They put it on his arm. He still ran the ball well, but outside of Lamar Jackson, they didn't do anything that they're known for doing against a team, again, that allowed 182 yards a week prior to Buffalo that just found their run game. For all the mistakes that were made, Todd Monken chose to do this on like a Tuesday, the week prior, when they formed this game plan. And for the life of me, I have no idea why they didn't lean on more of what they're known for. Because if they do, they likely have more success than what they ended up doing. Taking the sack, where it would have been 4th and 1, but they take the sack, go 4th and 3. They go for it anyway, lose 2 yards. They end up throwing. They would have thrown it on 4th and 1, it looked like, based on the play
that
call.
one made no sense.
It all top to bottom, it was bizarre. And they could only muster a field goal on their final 9 possessions. Give credit to Kansas City's defense. We've been trying to do that all season. They have carried this team through the ups and downs, but so has the Baltimore offense. The offense has met what Baltimore's defense has done. They have thrashed through the best of the NFL because of that. And yesterday, Todd Monken didn't meet the bar that he has set for this offense throughout the season and through the run game that is known for allowing a balanced attack against an MVP quarterback. Didn't do it. And someone needs to call him to the stand and ask him why.
Yeah, and I want to
6 runs for running backs.
I want to call Zay Flowers the stand also.
Yes.
You can't lose your mind like that, kid. Cannot do it. That was pathetic. The taunting penalty, dumb in that moment. I know I saw Joe Burrow even post, let him taunt. Let him taunt. Just no. You don't have to do that. Play the game. I understand emotion. You want to talk a little smack, okay. Don't put it in that situation. The fumble, it's a first down play, my man. Just go down at the 1. Your team is likely to score. You're going to have 4 downs to punch it in. There's no need trying to extend the ball. Great play by L'Jarius Sneed, who is a revelation.
It was awesome.
As a defensive back. He is terrific. So props to him on that play. But Zay Flowers does that and then goes to the sideline and punches the bench and cuts his hand. I hope for his sake, he's a good player, and he's got a lot of good football left in him. I hope that's not the end of the story for him. I hope it's not the end of the story for the Detroit Lions, which we're going to get to momentarily also. But I watched that Zay Flowers meltdown in that game, and I'm thinking, I really hope this guy gets back to this point and at least doesn't psychologically melt down to this level again. I want to see something better for him. But yesterday was really bad. And that's one that was not on Lamar Jackson, or certainly not on the Ravens defense, but he let them down in the worst possible spot. And then he's, walking to the locker room crying. I mean, you're watching someone have a psychological breakdown, an emotional breakdown during a game. It was almost sad to watch. But you can't do that. If you want to win a Super Bowl, the teams that do it, they're not having mental breakdowns at the end of a game like that over a mistake or even making mistakes that level. They're at least showing composure to try to show that to their teammates that you're going to recover from it. Zay Flowers was completely incapable of that.
Well, and on a day where he had 115 yards receiving, they went to him. They finally found Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
Forgot he was on the team for the first half, really first 3 quarters until they got him going. Chad, composure for Zay Flowers. Also on the flip side, Detroit losing the lead and San Francisco coming from behind, down double digits, and stopping Detroit on 4th down opportunities, and trying to convert, also getting turnovers, and Dan Campbell sticking by what Dan Campbell does. We saw this in the game against Dallas, where kept going for 2 on 3 or 4 different snaps where he just wasn't going to kick it. He was going for it. Dallas ends up winning that game somehow. And it was a bad issue that started everything, but The coach doesn't kick, and he didn't yesterday. And the entire fourth quarter, I'm thinking, what a range of emotions. Not on the sideline, but for all Detroit Lions fans. That close to playing in the Super Bowl, and they're up at halftime. Everything's going great until the San Francisco defense and Brock Purdy and company show up in the second half and come back to win that game.
Really stopped getting those cutaways to Ford Field when things started falling apart. I was looking forward to more of those. Ooh. But 40,000 people, I think, in Ford Field to watch that game with the Lions watch party. And when things started unraveling over that 8-minute stretch where they lost a 17-point lead, they stopped showing those cutaways. Those 8 minutes, that was a microcosm of 67 years of Detroit Lions football. 67 years from the last time they won an away playoff game, and that was against San Francisco, to last night where they're up 24-7. They're up 24-10 after the first drive of the second half. They are in control of that game, and everything falls apart. And I mean everything falls apart to the point where you even get a good punt off, and it bounces your way at the 1, and one of the guys covering the punt puts his feet in the end zone as he touches it and gives it to them at the 20. One play I want to highlight, though, that I thought was a huge moment, could have been, in this game. All the momentum with the 49ers. They take a 27-24 lead. Lions get the ball. First play of that possession, they go to Jamison Williams for 20-plus yards, and they get a big play. But Jamison Williams bobbles the ball into the air. And with everything unraveling for the Lions, I'm watching this play thinking, that is another turnover. First play, catchable ball, bounces off his shoulder pad and into the defensive back's hands for the 49ers. Game over. But instead, Jamison Williams took the ball from the defender. They roll to the ground. He gets up with it, runs a little bit more, and it's a big play and a first down. And I paused the television, and I said to myself, because, of course, no one in my household was paying any attention to the game. I said to myself, Chad Withrow in that moment, that's it. That's the moment that the Detroit Lions wrestle momentum back, and they're going to go down and score. You know who else was thinking that in that moment? Dan Campbell, the man that's much stronger and much larger than me with a goatee on the sideline. He's thinking the same thing. Lions get another big play after that. Suddenly they're on the move. They get it to the 30. It's 4th and 3. What do you think Dan Campbell is going to do in that moment? Dan Campbell, the Detroit Lions, who have gone for it on 34% of all fourth down plays this year. That's the highest percentage since 2000. He's almost 53% over his tenure. Did you really think Dan Campbell was going to go to a kicker who with 50-plus yard field goals this year is 38.5%? Now, I know that was a 48-yarder, but it's getting close to 50. Michael Badgley had not attempted a lot of field goals. Ask yourself, if Dan Campbell, this alpha male, we go for it around here, I trust my guys, we're not going to go down on our back. We're going to go down swinging, fighting, and if we get knocked down, we're going to bite a few kneecaps off on our way back up. That Dan Campbell, did anyone really expect him to go down, possibly missing a field goal with a kicker who had attempted 8 field goals all year? It was never going to happen. What would Chad Withrow have done in that moment? I would have sent Michael Badgley out there to kick a field goal and tie the game up for a number of reasons. One, I think it's a pretty high percentage kick. I think he's something like 77% on kicks 40 to 49 yards. I'm taking that percentage. Two, I think mathematically and pressure-wise, if you tie that game up with 7.5, 8 minutes left, whatever it was, you possibly get the 49ers to punt. What I mean by this is you put the onus on the 49ers to go for it on every fourth down if you take a 4-point lead. I believe the percentage chance of you losing by 3 with them scoring a touchdown with 1.5 minutes left goes way up, even if you score a touchdown in that moment. So tie the game up, play it straight up for the final 7.5 minutes. That's what I would have done. But am I going to crush a guy that got the Detroit Lions to an NFC Championship game for the first time in forever because he's gone for it all the time and that's that team's mentality? No. I'm seeing people on Twitter calling for the guy's head to be fired and just to promote Ben Johnson. No, not going to do it. That's what he's done all year. The same people who have praised him for that mindset and for trying to turn Detroit into a winner and have a positive winning mentality, they're crushing him today for that. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to crush the guy for it. Would I have done that? Absolutely not. I'm not Dan Campbell. And part of being Dan Campbell and going for it is the reason the Lions were in that position to begin with. I can't crush him over it, even though I totally disagree with the call.
Well, and think about the situations, too, for what was happening. So they had the 17-point advantage. He has the first kick, which would have given the Lions a 27-10 lead with, 7 minutes left in the third quarter.
Yes, that's the first fourth down he did not get.
It makes sense to go up by 3 scores.
Yeah.
It makes sense to go up by 3 scores.
Well, that's where the inconsistency comes in because he knew that at the end of the first half.
Right.
Remember, he had the 4th and goal from the 3, and I'm screaming at the TV, kick the field goal and go up 3 scores at halftime.
Yeah.
Right? That was to make it 24-7 in a 21-7 game, and he didn't do that later in the game.
And yeah, right. And you've got this, you have the opportunity with 7.5. Again, you've cut the quarter in half now, and you go up by 3 scores. The second one, you've been outscored 20-0 to that point. I just stop the bleeding. I take the kick, stop the bleeding, and then buckle up. Buckle up for what's going to be a crazy, 7 minutes remaining in the game. But you just stop the bleeding. You get points.
Right. The flip side of that, though, is, and I understand this thinking if you're him, you're also thinking, boy, not only are you said stop the bleeding, Hutton. I mean, we're talking like lacerations all over the body.
Yeah.
He's bleeding out at that point. And I can understand the mentality, even if I'm a Lions fan. I'm not, but if I'm watching that, or if I'm Dan Campbell, I'm thinking, do I trust this guy who hasn't been here that long, that hasn't attempted a lot of kicks, to stop the bleeding for me and nail this 47-yarder? One that he's not hit this long this year outdoors. All the other ones have been indoors for us. Or do I trust my quarterback and St. Brown and Sam Laporta to pick up 3 yards? I can understand the thinking of, I'm going to go down swinging with these guys and not the kicker. That being said, it's still a pretty high percentage play to kick the field goal.
It's an NFL kicker kick is what it is. And it's a game that was decided by 3 points. When you're up by 17.
It makes it a lot easier also if you're him. And I know he doesn't think this way, and I appreciate this about him. You're not getting blamed for anything if your kicker misses that. Right?
Well,
I think the easy, smart thing to do is to do that, also knowing you're not going to be the one getting the blame when the kicker goes out and misses a 47-yarder and you lose the game that way. He knows he's opening himself up to it when he goes for it on 4th and 3, but I appreciate the fact he doesn't care.
Yeah, and the players, by and large, like the fact that he's aggressive. Players want to be aggressive, especially offensive in that moment. The momentum shift, though, on a 4th down stop, Baltimore had one yesterday against Kansas City. Baltimore and KC went for it on 4th down early in the game. In some territory that, again, in a game that's 17-10, it's field position type game. They weren't playing field position early in the first half of that one. That didn't come back to bite KC whenever they went for it on 4th down and Baltimore got the stop. They also stopped the Ravens a few times. Point being, though, he went in the locker room and admitted that he told the players, we may never be back here in this moment. In this exact moment. And it's a 49ers team that handled, just on the flip side of things, it was the reverse of what we saw from them in the first half. And Bosa said he went in and said something. There were others that said they spoke up. And just do your job. Like, execute. Do what got us here. And they have so many individual leaders at different spots around the field. They were stepping up and making plays. Purdy we'll get to in just a moment. But when the play had to be made, San Fran was making it. And I just allow the 3 points to happen. And you just try to get the ball back. And then you can play aggressive because you got the tie. That would have been my mentality personally. And I couldn't. Did you think about the Dallas game the entire time? Where instead of, at some point you just kick it and tie it.
Instead of going for two.
If you're going for two, it's your best play. You've practiced it all week. And then the way that unfolded, you've already shown your hand as to what you were going to do at the snap because, again, it was a penalty. You scored. There was a penalty that brought it back. And you kept going for it, 2 or 3 more times afterwards with different plays. I stopped doing that and I do something different and then hold back for what it was going to be another moment where he gets to be aggressive and go for the win. And he's doing that there. He's trying to end the game as soon as possible there, but there's so much time left. I'm just trying to knot the game again. And you're down 20-0 at that point based on the way the game had been going.
Yeah, look,
It's not a 10-point
I raised
swing.
my hand and said, Chad Withrow would have kicked the field goal in that moment. I disagree with the call to go for it, but I also understand how Dan Campbell has molded that team in his image, and those guys have responded to that. And I think there's kind of a call and response with this in sport where the coach calls for something in the hopes that their team responds because their head man is showing faith in them. Now, I'm going to do this, and we're going to go for it because I believe in you guys. Now, reward me by picking this up. The problem was they ran a man beater against the zone defense, thinking it was man. Greg Olson, who's done a terrific job for Fox, pointed that out. He said, this is a very simple route concept that is designed to beat man-to-man defense. Jared Goff and the offensive coordinator, clearly, Ben Johnson, thought coming in, they were showing man, we're going to run this play, and then it was a zone, and he had nowhere to go. And he kind of flails and throws it deep, and it's incomplete. I mean, if you're going to go with it, I would rather do something that could possibly beat either. I know Jared Goff's not a running option, so sort of the pass-run option on a play is out the window with him. But you got to do something that's such a quick hitter that you're not getting guys in motion even, that you feel like if all goes poorly, you can throw a 50-50 ball here and hope that your receiver makes a great catch or makes a play on it. I don't know. I wouldn't have gone for it. I don't like the play call. Certainly don't like the fact they did not get it. But I also completely understand Dan Campbell and what he's thinking, and the way the Lions got to be the Lions this year was because he's a guy who goes for it on 34% of every fourth down, which was highest in the league. And he did it again in the key moment.
And
it failed miserably.
And they have had success doing that too. You know, you're right. That's what got them to this moment. The moment for the Lions fans, Chad, I was gut-wrenched for them. And I don't feel this way.
And you're right. I don't know they're ever going to get back.
Yeah.
It's not one of those where you look around the NFC and think, oh, the Lions are going to be there. They're ahead of schedule. They're going to get back. I don't know. That was a miraculous run they went on this year. And to get those 2 home playoff games and to have that opportunity,
well, and think about
it sucks.
Well, and think about the teams that thought they would be back in recent history, just recent years. Cincinnati, Philadelphia. You know, in the moment you're like, oh, this team's great.
Cincy's a really good one.
And you think you're
back. Because
back.
now we watch Cincy and think, okay, where are they going to be in the AFC now moving forward?
Well, and Detroit, they could potentially be replacing both coordinators.
Yeah.
With Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. Could. Ben Johnson seems locked to get a job. You know, what happens now when you have to replace your guy who has elevated and already stayed for an extra year? You know, it seems like that's what Bobby Slowick's doing. He's pulling the Ben Johnson move for one more year with the quarterback.
But the hope is that you start, if you're Dan Campbell, kind of a pipeline of we got the guy on staff, or we know the family tree we're going to go after with Ben Johnson, and you just get the next guy up, and they're good again. Defensive coordinator-wise, if they lose Aaron Glenn, I like Aaron Glenn. I know he's doing a good job in these head coaching interviews, and he may get an opportunity somewhere else. I think they'll be fine on the defensive side of the ball with whoever they hire. I don't know that that's some gigantic loss with him. I do think Ben Johnson is going to be a sizable loss as an offensive coordinator for that Lions offense, who was terrific this year.
Also terrific second half, Brock Purdy backs down the haters yet again. Saw a great comparison tweet, and I'll give credit for just a moment. Let me dig this up with the comparison here, because I think it's perfect for Purdy. This is from Kyle Porter from CBS. Purdy's a little speethy. Nobody can agree whether he's even good at the sport, but it's extremely difficult to fake that many wins.
That's a really good way to put it.
That's perfect.
Speethy.
And
what an adjective.
Brock Purdy going to the Super Bowl and knowing the way that game played out, the last 2 games in the first half, and then he has a second half surge, 13 of 16, 174 yards. He's scrambling for 49 more yards in that half and produced points on all but last of the 6 second half possessions. Even in the first half, when things weren't great, he stood in the pocket and delivered this strike over the middle to Deebo Samuel with the blitz right in his face, hit as he throws, and delivers this money pass. And I'm thinking, how many quarterbacks in the playoffs make that throw? Brock Purdy did. And everyone's expecting him to have this everything, it strikes midnight and we go back to, the pumpkin. It's not happening here.
I keep expecting it. I'm guilty of this. I love Brock Purdy. I think he's a legitimate MVP candidate this year. But when he throws that pick to Malcolm Rodriguez in the first half, and it's falling apart for them, I can't help but mentally to go back somewhere in the recesses of my brain and think, there it is. There's the last pick of the NFL draft. There's the 7th rounder. I knew he was going to rear his ugly head. There he is again. That looks like a guy who should be a 3rd stringer somewhere, and he's shown up in the biggest moment.
Man.
And then he comes back in the second half, and he's a miracle worker with his legs at times. 21-yard scramble one time.
Off script, he's winning games.
It's nuts.
Game managers don't pull off 17-point comebacks in an NFC Championship game.
No.
They don't.
Spieth's a great way to put it also. And here's what's crazy about it, Hutton. I think Jordan Spieth shows more emotion than Brock Purdy. Given the sports the two of them play, you wouldn't think that'd be the case. But Spieth's more of a Spiethy. That's not my new pet nickname for Jordan Spieth. Spiethy
well done, Kyle.
is way more of an emotional roller coaster than Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is steady Eddie. He didn't get down when they were down 24-7. He just walks out there, makes plays. He gets his face just drubbed into the turf at one point on what should have been a 15-yard penalty, comes up, mouth bleeding, doesn't even react, just keeps going about his business, leads the 49ers right back, and then they end up winning the game. Remarkable. And what a great quarterback showdown now we get in the Super Bowl. From Jimmy Garoppolo versus Patrick Mahomes, 4 years ago? Now you get 49ers Chiefs again, but this time Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes.
We replaced the guy who was replacing Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
And here's Kyle Shanahan.
It's not Trey Lance, the high draft pick. It's this guy right here, Brock Purdy.
And Kyle Shanahan gets another opportunity here to, he gets to exercise the demons a bit. Keep in mind, he's the offensive coordinator of 28-3 in Atlanta for that Super Bowl. He was also, of course, the head coach when they're up, 10 points with 6.5 minutes to play in the first meeting, San Francisco and Kansas City. That game's in Miami. Chiefs come back to win that game. It was Mahomes and Kelce on that drive. And he was throwing the football up 10. He's doing some. Now he gets the next one. And he did it in a game where he came back from 17 on the arm and legs of Purdy in this. There was also the great Ayuk catch. I mean, there were so many great moments in this.
Yeah, Ayuk's a stud.
Yeah,
Jawan Jennings with the most miraculous 4-yard gain you'll ever see.
Yes.
Where the scramble, throwing back across the body, and he goes up and one-hands it for a 4-yard gain.
And then Purdy rushed for 6 fewer yards than Lamar Jackson did yesterday. That's not going to happen again.
Mm-mm.
But here's what I also know. Christian McCaffrey's going to get the football more than 6 times against that Chiefs defense. Who's also, McCaffrey's just, we get so far down the list of talking about him, but he's unbelievable.
I think he should be Offensive Player of the Year.
And he will be.
Yeah, he should be. It's crazy how narratives get built and how we can sit here and predict exactly what a national narrative will be and how it forms. We said this going into the Ravens-Chiefs. Boy, if Lamar Jackson wins this and he's got the best team in the NFL and they go on and win the Super Bowl, every question about Lamar Jackson will be erased. Mm-hmm. And Lamar Jackson will suddenly be the second best quarterback in the NFL unanimously behind Patrick Mahomes. I think most people would put him in that spot. Hey, he's won the Super Bowl. Josh Allen hasn't. This guy's the second best quarterback in the league. He'd have been right there in that spot. He loses the game. Not all his fault. He's got a receiver having a breakdown. He's got defensive players getting 15-yard penalties, going nuts. He's got a lot of bad things happening. That doesn't necessarily involve him. But what's the narrative now? Lamar Jackson can't vanquish the big dogs. Big dog eats Lamar Jackson again. Can't win in the clutch. Good quarterback, not truly elite because he can't win the big one. What's the knock on Kyle Shanahan going to be if he goes 0 for 2 against the Chiefs and loses this Super Bowl? Just how fickle a beast success can be. Kyle Shanahan is brilliant and done an amazing job with the 49ers. We're all saying that now. But come Monday morning after the Super Bowl, if they lose, Hutton, we know exactly what people are going to say about Shanahan. Can't win the big one.
Well,
really good, not great. Great coaches go out and win Super Bowls. Kyle Shanahan looks like a guy who's always going to be a bridesmaid He might get to a couple more, but he's never going to win it. He can get to all the NFC Championship games he wants, but he's not truly elite until he wins it. That was what being said about Andy Reid before he got to Kansas City, right? With what he did with the Eagles. That was the knock on him also. I say that to say the obvious. Super Bowls change narratives around players and coaches all the time, but I'm just giving you a little preview of what it's going to sound like if the 49ers don't win this game. And if the Chiefs win this game, Hutton, and you've got 3 Super Bowl wins now for Patrick Mahomes at 28 years old, I mean, crown him. He's on his way to being the best quarterback of all time. On his way.
This era's GOAT. I mean, he's the new era GOAT. And they're already starting to see the back and forth with, I think there's a Brady exhibit coming up at the Super Bowl or something.
6 seasons, 6 AFC West titles, 6 AFC Championship Game appearances, now 4 Super Bowl appearances.
14-3 in the playoffs. 2
Super Bowl championships already. Those 14 playoff wins already in year 6 ties him with Peyton Manning, John Elway, and Terry Bradshaw with 14 playoff wins all time. He's only behind Joe Montana, which if he wins the Super Bowl, he's 1 playoff win behind Montana, who's got 16. And, of course, Tom Brady with 35 playoff wins.
And he has a tight end who just passed Jerry Rice, speaking of Montana. Jerry Rice for the most catches in the playoffs.
Simply spectacular. We've definitely never seen a start to a career like this. It's not even close. By the time it's done, we may say it's not even close in terms of all-time greatest quarterback. But for a 6-year window to start a career from being a starter, we've never seen anything like this.
I believe Big Ben holds this record, but Purdy now is second all-time for the most playoff victories in his first 2 years as a starter. And he did that starting halfway through his rookie year. And he's making $870,000. We've pointed this out throughout the year. He's not eligible for a contract extension based on the CBA until after year 3. So it's early 2025 when he can do that. He's making less than Sam Darnold by a boatload. And by a boatload, he's making less than more than a handful of college quarterbacks right now, based on the structure of what the collective bargaining agreement allows you to do for contract extensions. San Francisco is able to make trades, and pick up top talent, and like Chase Young. They can go out and get pieces at the trade deadline because their quarterback isn't eating up the cap, not spending a ton of money, and not even spending a ton of money. It's minimum wage. It's not minimum wage. It's the minimum salary, minimum wage for the NFL structure. That's the least amount he could make, and he's getting that.
It's the ultimate.
Crazy.
It's the ultimate bargain in all of sports.
John Simmons with the list. Shadir Sanders makes $4.7 million. You have Arch Manning at 2.8, Travis Hunter, Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe, well over $1 million.
And that's their valuation. We don't know that they're making all of that, but they're definitely making more than Purdy.
But we know,
right? If it's not 4.7, it's over $1 million.
No doubt.
I mean, we were going down the list earlier. I'm thinking that's just the on-3 NIL valuation. But think of every major quarterback transfer this past offseason. You think Will Howard at Ohio State's making more than $1 million?
Yes.
Absolutely. Cam Ward making more than $1 million? Yes. It's the best
and
bargain
I'm all for it, but
in all of sports.
This is crazy.
Best bargain in all of sports. Scottie Pippen was the best bargain in all of sports at one point. We learned that in The Last Dance with that awful contract he signed early in his career that looked good then, but was terrible 8 years later that he tried to renegotiate, and Jerry Reinsdorf would not let him renegotiate. That goes from Scottie Pippen now to Brock Purdy. Best bargain in sports.